overthinking this and came up with about 6 different configurations, pulled my husband in, got rid of the shelf, and then had him overthink it with me for a while. He's not as good at overthinking as I am, so he had a couple quick solutions. Still don't even remember his suggestions. He went inside to rest his leg. I'm putting something together. So right now I think what we've got, we're gonna play with for at least for the time being, because I just need to get something done even if it's wrong. 2 stacks of the dough cages over here, although I think one of them might be in Massachusetts, so it might be a stack of 3 and a stack of 2. Do the bucks on that wall, do grow outs here. Something we might do that we're playing around with, and we probably don't really need to do this right now because all these cages aren't even here. So I don't even know how many are left. I had given some away with some rabbits down there before we went, but we're thinking about possibly turning these back to back for the grow outs and having like a 2 cage deep that comes out into the middle, probably no more than 3. That'll give us 6 feet out from the wall so we can still get around it, but I'm trying to maintain still being able to have an area for feed and for a table or shelf or something for the scale and all of that stuff. The dough cages fit nicely against the wall if I went 3, but I'm kind of, unless I build something to get them up off the floor more, which is a definite maybe, just so that I can have better access to that bottom cage. It doesn't do me any good wasting this space if I don't stack them in 3. So in other words, I could do 3 stacks of 2, and the benefit to that would be that we could build a platform or put them up on some cinder blocks. That's what I did with the buck cages down in Mass. And that got them up, and that was actually a little nicer to work, those bottom cages. But with them stacked 3, like you can only go so high on the dough cages with that because they stack higher. And then you run into problems getting the top dough out. So eventually, yeah, maybe these do get broken down into 3 stacks of 2, but for now, because it's not gaining me anything right at this particular moment, because I don't have a platform or blocks to put them on, I'm just gonna go with the stacks of 3. And yeah, like I said, I could overthink this all day long, but I think I just gotta do something even if it's wrong, get something done. When the rest of the cages get up here, probably play with it again once I know how many grow out cages I actually had left that I'm trying to get in here. I know it's fewer than I had down in Mass because like I said, I had given away, some rabbits to a family to get them going, gave one to a young nephew, sent some cages with some of those, and last minute we couldn't fit them all on the truck, so some of them are still there. They're coming up hopefully soon. I don't really need them soon, but it would just be nice to get them here and get them stacked. And then I had to run down in the basement. You can see I've got an even bigger mess than I started with because I had to go find my boxes from the rabbit room that were mixed in with my dining room closet boxes and my kitchen pans, and I still haven't found my favorite pottery coffee mug. But what I realized was, didn't know where the adapters were that have to stick in. So these stackable do more cages, they have these little adapter units that stick in the rails, one in each, and then the next one will go on top and into this. That's what I'm working on now. Had to go dig those out and find them. I did find them. The good thing is that I got 2 more boxes out of the house, but now I got more junk in here, but it's not really junk. I mean, it's stuff that came in here and needs to go back in here and get set up. So onwards and upwards. That's 1 stack put together. Probably going to end up sending that closer to that wall because then I think I can use a little more corner space here, but for the time being. Absolutely amazing how many leaves can sneak in through these cage wires, just sitting under the themselves lightweight, they're just a little bit awkward and cumbersome, so, you know, it can be a one-person job, it can be a two-person job. If you're moving them with rabbits, then you want that second person, just because it's a little more weight and a little more awkward shifting with the weight in there. But it's definitely, you know, these are the 36 by 30 cages, so definitely something that even a woman, a girl alone can do. Probably not supposed to say that, but I know that I'm not as strong as my sons or my husband. And, you know, obviously I'm out here on my own doing it. I've got other things to do. It's a rest day for my husband's leg. So, you know, that's the way it is. It's just to say and just to show that, yeah, these cages definitely are something that anyone can manage doing. You don't need a heck of a lot of mechanical expertise. I'm not the most mechanical person. I can get by, mostly because I don't care to build up any more mechanical skills than I have. I've got enough for what I want to do, and that's that. But, you know, just to say that definitely something anybody can even follow. More cages definitely are not as consistent as a lot of other cages, so sometimes these adapters you actually do kind of have like a right one and a wrong one. Most of them fit, they're fine, they're interchangeable, but sometimes you'll find one that it just isn't working, or you might even have to turn it over just because of the expansion in those trails a little bit. Came off, we packed these full of some of the random stuff. I think this one's really got some random things in it. Bottom board for a nest box, which I think we're going to be looking at trying to get some pegboard and replace soon. Maybe try and go with something different for that, just because the pegboard is, you know, it absorbs stuff. Rest mats. Another piece of the nest box, which the nice thing about these lofted ceilings is now I'll have a nice spot to tuck those up into right above those doe cages. They'll be nice and handy and accessible eventually when we get that organized and get there. And the gambrels just almost got left. I had to go warn somebody, say, hey, did we cull those? So these are the nice gambrels. We used to use baling twine hung from a couple of, I don't know, screws, nails, something. But these, I think I bought them off Etsy. There was someone who developed these. I'm not going to remember off the top of my head right now who originally did. But they kind of stopped making them. I think it's the people who made the Hopper Popper, but lots of people on Etsy making them. They're not too expensive. They last a long time, you know, they're gonna last us forever. But they really are nice and rigid, and they hold the legs apart when you're processing, so definitely worth investing in. I have to put up some nails in here, but for now, just get them out of there. Probably should have done the back side first. Definitely should have done the back side first. So these are what those little adapters look like, if anyone's wondering. Well, let's butt cages together. I think I'm gonna do a lot of shifting and inching around as we go. Another option is to put one of these in storage because there's only $3 here right now, so I could stack these 3 high. That opens up a whole other space. But like I said, I only have a few of the 24-inch cages left anyway that'll go on the back wall, so not gonna need that space right now, but I definitely see some rearrangement going on in the future. But such as things, you know, the old barn took a lot of renditions and a lot of moving around and rearranging before I got it quite right to where I wanted it. As you work and you grow in a space, you figure it out, you figure out what's gonna work better, come up with a better idea. It's just the way it is. So this is for now. I'm gonna keep going with a few of those, see what we end up with at the end. Here's the test that'll tell me how close these can be to those. And it's where the pans fit in and out. So yeah, with the hay, it's hitting this hay rack here. But otherwise almost fits, but not really. So either those go more that way or these come this way. Probably makes sense for these to go that way for now. Plenty of room with those there. These could even go over more. Toying around with the idea of bringing up that other stackable and putting it on the end there. Yeah, that might happen, which means these are gonna have to come over more. Just trying to figure out that whole, like, what makes the best footprint, use of the footprint of the space. But it's just, you know, I know I've said it enough times, but it's just a matter of getting them in, getting them organized, see where they land. It might be because of the tray issue that butting these back to back and coming out might be the best use of that space so that we can get some more in there, but we'll see. Kind of changed my mind again, stacked up those dough cages, and then, not sure why I wasn't thinking this before, but this galvanized is also 36 by 30, even though it's different cage, so that slots right in there. Decided to bring this up. We're not going to need this for quite a while, but it does make a good spot for transitioning out weaning litters in between, which helps me use more of the individual grow out cages, because, you know, you can kind of be overlapping litters that way. And also gives a good space, like if I have some promising does or even bucks that I'm holding back, younger stuff, these are good cages to grow them out in, and then hold them back as replacement stock, which I do kind of want to do once I get going, because these aren't old rabbits, but especially where we've had some breaks and interruptions, and actually the Californians are getting a little bit of age on them, not too bad. But I just like to always be 4 to 6 months ahead with something held in reserve, just in case. I mean, you know, if things start to age out, if somebody just isn't performing the way I want them to, I'm not losing much time in replacing them if I have something coming up behind them. And then if it turns out I don't need them, I can sell them, I can eat them, or I can just decide that they're a better prospect than something I've got, whatever, there's options. But I do always like to have a little something held back from my grow out litters for that. So, brought those up, which was also nice to get them out of the woods, get them out of the weather. Decided, gonna try the bucks over here. I don't need these grow out cages, even the 24s, for a long time, but this does give me a little bit more of that kind of separation and categorization that I like to have in my barn. It's kind of just a mental thing, but it just makes it a lot easier to be able to point and shoot when, you know, when I'm selling, processing, whatever. So gonna try the buck cages over here.
I've decided I'm just gonna do a stack of 3. I only have 3 bucks right now anyway, so I don't need all 4. It's just that I had 4, I was trying to get everything in here, but I'm kind of biting off more than I need to chew right now. Trying to get everything in here and make this, you know, sort of the same size operation that the other barn was. You know, we're not the same barn, so I'm gonna have to make some decisions here. So I'm gonna try the bucks here, and then what I'm gonna do is, for the time being, go that way with the 24 and that back wall, a couple other sets of the 24s, see how much grow out space I have. But I do think that maybe end up flipping this again in the future. We'll see as we get more grow outs and see what we want for grow out cages. I'm thinking that we may flip it because I'm thinking we may want to do those back-to-back stacks of the 2x2s, because we can, if we can come out into the floor, then we can get a little more square footage on grow out cages. But ideally, if I can get enough of it in here and just kind of being able to face to them for cleaning and feeding, it's nice, it's open, it's airy, not bumping into too many cages when I'm cleaning. So if I can keep these out of the middle of the floor, great. If not, it's not a bad way to use the space either. So, you know, in future you may see me trying that configuration, but for today, I need to land on something. And yeah, so I'm gonna do the stack 3 buck cages here, put the rest of the 24s in. I have one more of these 30 by 30s that won't be able to stack. You really don't want to stack these more than 3 high. If I go 4 high, which they don't even recommend, and it's too tall really to get into them. So I'm really not gonna do it, but if it did, I would make sure that you were mounting to the wall somehow too, but really it's not a good idea. I'm not gonna do it. So I think I'm just gonna end up with an extra 30 by 30 cage for the time being, or maybe it will fit over on the end. We'll see what works out. For today, I think it will be able to just stay in here temporarily, get all the 24s in here. Then when I get the rest of the cages up here, then I'll be able to finalize my first rendition of this barn. But I like to move furniture, so don't bet that it's the last rendition. Getting kind of late here, so for tonight, I'm gonna say let's try this out. I'm gonna get these bucks moved over into these buck cages. I'm gonna throw some mats and feed cups and stuff, and then I'll get those does moved over into some of the doe cages, and then throw the rest of these in here real quick and finish this up another day. But that gets us a good solid start. That gets most of my cages out of the rain, at least the ones that are here, with one exception of one bank. And we'll see where we get. You know, we'll keep playing with it, see what it looks like when I'm done.
Okay, big reveal. Here's our big organization from yesterday. Still got a stack of cages in the way. So this is it, my new and improved barn. So slightly improved. At least we've got some does in cages, bucks in cages, and a whole other pile of mess to deal with. But you know, the day was done. It was time to be done for the day, but at least I've gotten a basic structure. So doe setup, I figure I've got the 3 breeding does in the middle, and I think then I can go up and down with like transition litters, or at least split the litters by sex, which if you were breeding to like, or harvesting at 12 weeks, that would actually be a good way to do it. You know, you might need to split them up a little bit more as they grow along, but you can get to 12 weeks with just bucks and does separated. I harvest at 16, so I would need to move them out at least one more time probably, or at least kind of break those apart a little more. But I do think this gives me a little more use with the cages that I've got. I'm just gonna start using things in a slightly different way. But this is where we are now. So this is where I'm gonna leave it for the time being until I get some more time to get some more organization and mess cleaned up. I always think of these things as like a bruise. They're always gonna look worse before they look better. But the idea is we'll go from there over with grow out cages. So that stack will probably stay there. And then you can see I've set a pan down just to make sure that I can get those pans out, because we are facing 2 different ways with those. And then I can go over with a couple more stacks of the grow out cages, and that will use up most of what I own, with the exception of the 5-foot galvanized stack that's outside, probably gonna get covered with a tarp for the winter, and then we'll think about that on another day. So that's it for now, but I will come back when we're looking a little nicer and prettier in here. Right now, I'm gonna move on to feeding for the morning and actually putting these guys together and seeing if we get any breeding going. So that's that. Thanks for coming and watching along, and come back and see how we progress some more next time.